Think about how many people say they want this thing, whatever that thing is, and then their actions are nowhere near aligned, or they are aligned for some time and then they fall off. This is the antithesis of the Quitters Friday that comes shortly after New Year's, where people set New Year's resolutions and then go all in on trying to do the thing that they said they wanted to do, and then they fall off, they drop off, and they wonder why. Or they don't, and they just get frustrated and make excuses and then blame the world and then say, life's not fair, must be nice for these people that do all these things and have these life experiences and have the thing I want, so on and so forth. It comes down to a level of awareness and accountability and ownership of where you want to go. And more importantly, it comes down to your default setting, how you are conditioned, your nervous system, your brain and body, how it's conditioned to perceive adversity, resistance, stress, failure, not getting what you want, or just the natural resistance that comes with making a change in our lives. This video is a training of a 3-step approach to changing that reality for you, so you're not a part of Quitters Friday. You're not a part of the pool of people that sit around and become victims of their life experiences and their circumstances and then blame other people or other factors and don't look at themselves. That's not a pool that I want to hang out with. That's not a herd of people I want to connect with and be with. I want to help them. I don't judge them. I have nothing but love and respect for where they are. It's just not a place I want to be. And I want to be working with people that are like yourself that want to do something about where they are. So sit back, check out this video, get a notepad and something to write with, get some tea, coffee, whatever you got to do to stay locked in, because this 25-ish minute video is a deep dive into 3 practical steps that you can take action on today and that will move the needle for your life, that is not fluff, that is based on life experience and the clients I work with. And I guarantee if you give it a shot, you'll at least see some improvements in the matter of a day or a week, and then you'll be able to see how this compounds over time. And this is just one of many videos coming out that are like this style training, that is the same work that I do with my clients and workshops. And I want to start giving this value to you so that way you can take and run with it and change your life and share it with other people and have a ripple effect and be the change you want to see, rather than complaining about where you're not and what you're not doing, what you don't have. Actually take ownership of where you are and your ability to move forward. This isn't a matter of hacks or a matter of time. This is a matter of ability to do something about where you want to be, and that will increase the probability of getting to where you want and having the life that you want. Because I know and I guarantee that if you continue to complain and blame other people or other factors for why where you are and not take ownership of it, nothing will change except for things may get worse. And I've been in that situation where I've almost lost my life several times. And that's why I'm deeply passionate about this work. I don't just say this stuff. This isn't theory for me. This is application. This is me walking my talk. I live by a therapist and a coach and other people I surround myself with to hold me to my standards, the level of which I will tolerate of myself and other people in the life experiences. And this video training is going to help you do that thing. So watch it, take notes, let me know what you think, and I'm here to help if you have any questions. What would your life look like and feel like if you had the operating manual to your psychology, essentially the operating manual, the instructions to who you are, how you show up, and the results that you generate in your life, whether you're aware of it or not? So we often get products that come with instruction manuals. And we rarely, if ever, question, well, how does this thing up here work? And how does it work for me? And how am I creating the life experiences that I'm living with? And more importantly, how do I change those experiences if I want? Well, that changes today, because even though it's not that easy, it's very simple to gain the instruction manual to who you are and how you can go about changing the results that you get in your life. And this is whether you're aware of it or not, you are designing your life, whether passively or taking charge. And today's video is about how to take charge of the life that you're designing. So that way you're not living at effect to other people that are living in autopilot, just reactively creating life that you happen to be at the effect of. So first thing I want to start with is a slide. In this quote I said one time, I guess, or I wrote it, and it means a lot to me. And that's true growth comes when we stop defining ourselves by what we do and start living in alignment with who we say we want to become. Essentially, it's just about creating coherence in the things that we say, in our actions, our behavior. Oftentimes people say they want X, but they do Y, and it's completely in the other direction, and it creates a gap. And this gap is based upon our default setting, or some of my clients like to say our factory settings. And this setting, whether it's default or factory setting, whatever makes more sense to you, it's inherently visible when we get into stressful situations, environments. We don't get what we want, we fail, we fall down, we're in pain. And that's where we're pushed to the limits and we fall back to the level of our conditioning. And if we're not being proactive in conditioning our mind and our body to show up in a way that is congruent to the life experiences that we want and the results that we want to generate, it's easy to say, oh man, like life's so hard, life sucks, or it's not fair, and live by these things, or identify with our challenges, our adversities, and our illnesses, or our setbacks, our failures. And so, the point of my work in this video today is to help people unlock higher levels of resilience by updating their default setting. When we do the work, when things are going well, and we condition our mind and our body to show up that way when things aren't going well, which is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When things don't go our way, if our default setting is at a higher standard than it was in the past, we have a higher probability of experiencing the adversity in a way that allows us to overcome it because we're looking at it in a different way. We're placing a meaning on it in a different way and we're feeling differently about it, whether that be an empowered sense, that be a sense of peace, that be a sense of faith and overcoming, that be a sense of belief and I can do this. It's going to help us get closer to where we want to go, closing that gap between our intentions and executing in a congruent manner. And so the question is, well, how do we do this? And there's 3 steps to empowerment that we're going to focus on today. And it's this idea of adaptive change, meaning we focus on changing at the core of who we are and who we are at our identity level rather than trying to force technical or resourceful based solutions to a problem that is presenting as a problem. It's the evidence that we see as we call the problem. But really, what's happening is there's a root cause going on beneath the surface that most of us tend not to look at because it's uncomfortable. And with discomfort comes stress. And with stress comes the default activation. And if you are perceiving stress as something to run away from because it's harmful and dangerous, or do you perceive stress as an opportunity to grow, even though it's uncomfortable? There's some discomfort there, there's resistance, maybe some pain. You've conditioned your mind and body to look at these situations as like, hey, here's the path for the North Star. This is the path forward. The North Star is guiding my way to this is improvement. This is how I become better. It all depends on your default setting and how you interact with the world. So, the first concept we must cover is this idea of being above the line or below the line. And if you haven't read the 15 commitments of conscious leadership, this is where the concept of the line comes from. It's a very powerful book. It can be applied to individuals or organizations or small teams. Leadership starts with self. And if you can't lead yourself, you aren't going to be able to lead other people effectively. It all starts with self. So, many people, we live reactively, reflexively, in autopilot. We're controlled by stress. Our brain gets hijacked and we're just doing the best that we can. And this often leads us to doing what our mind unconsciously perceives as the easiest thing to do out of habit. Our brain is always trying to preserve energy. It's a cognitive miser, meaning it uses most of the energy of our entire body. So it's always trying to create habits to create efficiency. And this tends to bring up our default and going into the thing that's already known and habitual rather than the thing that probably is the best selection to move forward to fixing the problem. So we get stuck in this self-sabotage loop of the brain trying to create efficiency. And this leads us to living below the line. This is where a fixed mindset comes from. This is where people that believe their talents, their intelligence, their abilities are just set from birth. This is what creates a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of people living at effect, which is something we're going to talk about here in a little bit, at effect to the environment. So below the line is fixed mind thinking. It's my talents, my abilities, and my skills are fixed. I'm better than people. People aren't as good as I am, so on and so forth. It's looking at the world as a fixed based on our genetics and our birth. This also leads us to living and leading unconsciously. We're stressed. We're an autopilot. So we're just doing our best. Our focus narrows on self-preservation and efficiency. So we're just, leading and living unconsciously and at the effect of the environment more so. This also below the line living and leading is a sense of being closed and defensive, a commitment to being right, to feel better about where we are rather than being curious and open, which is what we're going to talk about next. And finally, this is below the line is a operating system that is at effect to the environment and the circumstances. And let's go to the top now. So living above the line is a growth mindset, is, looking at things as an opportunity to get better. How can I learn? A belief that your talents and your ability and your intelligence and skills aren't fixed. They can improve, and you can grow into this level of where you want to be and how you want to show up. And so this is where we're leading and living consciously, where life is now happening for us and through us. It's a empowered state. We're committed to being open and curious and learning from everything and everyone, and even ourselves and our failures. This is the growth mindset. And most importantly, this is a choice to live at cause for our reality, not to say things out of our control, don't happen, and those things that are maybe unwanted, because those things will happen and they do happen. It's about taking ownership of where you are and how you want to move forward. It's living at cause for your experiences. The final thing I want to say about this line is it matters more to know where you are than actually where you are. So let me say that again. It matters more to know where you are than actually where you are. So if you understand, you create awareness to, oh, maybe I'm below the line, or maybe I'm having a fixed mindset, I'm living at effect, so I'm being a victim right now to my circumstances, or I'm closed and defensive. I'm triggered, I'm active, I'm in ego. Okay, I know where I am. Now, what would it take to get above the line? That is more important than just being above or below the line. Because without awareness, we have no probability of improving our situation. So this brings us to the next point about consciousness. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the only thing you need to know is we process about 11 trillion bits of information every second. And that's at an unconscious level. We only perceive consciously about 50 bits of those information. The average person, I should say, only perceives about 50 bits of those information, those data points consciously. That creates a wide gap. This is also why there's a lot of blind spots, a lot of mistakes can happen, and especially when stress comes in, which is why we don't consciously perceive all or process all these bits of information, because we go into overwhelm. And when we get into overwhelm, our fight or flight system kicks in, where we get stressed and cortisol and adrenaline start flowing through our body, and our focus narrows onto solving the problem of getting out of the threat or fighting back. And this is what creates a psychological term known as katomas, of blind spots. And so the objective here, it's kind of a paradox, because we see how big of a gap there really is and how much of the environment stimuli and information we're really aware of and privy to. The objective here is to create more awareness, but with more awareness, we create more overwhelm and more stress. Overwhelm is just an abundance of new incoming information we're trying to process and make sense of. So if you can start reframing when you feel overwhelmed that, hey, I'm just taking in a lot of new information, you just start there. That can help you feel better about it. And then you can start to ask questions. Okay, what can I learn from this? How can I apply this to move forward in a way that's more congruent to where I want to be? So consciousness is the first step to creating awareness, which awareness is the first step to being empowered and changing your situation. And in order to know what you want, you have to know what you're doing. And this came from Moshe Feldenkrais. And what we're going to talk about in this slide is the 4 levels of awareness. And this is really important because it's about knowing where you are. Again, remember the line. It's more important to know where you are than actually where you are. So level 1, I like to call in the program. This is unconscious incompetence. This is where we all start. We all start not knowing from, we can look at from being born to, an infant, to a baby, to a toddler, to a teenager, so on and so forth. Like, we're always learning. So we're born into the world unconsciously incompetent. This is in the program. This doesn't just happen at birth and then we're done with it. This is where autopilot and stress brings us back to. The objective is to get to level 2, the observer. This is where awareness really takes hold here, is we become conscious of our incompetence. We become conscious of our weak spots, of our blind spots, of our deficiencies, where we suck, right? It's about creating awareness to where we can improve, room for improvement. This is where the growth mindset comes in, because when you see the things that you're not good at, your incompetencies, your weaknesses, your lack of skill, that could create a stress response, because you may judge yourself for not being good enough. You may get into a fear mindset. It's closed, it's shut down, it's committed to being right, because being right, living by your excuses feels better, but it's not going to help you move forward. So a growth mindset is really important here, because we need to be asking, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I get better? Now, with level 1 and 2, fear, speaking of fear, this is what creates the cycle of bouncing back between level 1 and 2. It's until we change the frame what we're looking through this opportunity of creating awareness to conscious incompetence, our weaknesses, our blind spots, our deficiencies. When we change the frame that we're looking, we apply different meaning, oh, I can learn, I can get better, this is how I can improve. We move to level 3. This is where we start to become the programmer of our life. This is where conscious competence comes in. Now, this is where you're aware of the thing, you're doing the thing, you're working on improving the thing. And over time, with conscious repetition, this is how habits are formed. Any artist or athlete or anyone with any skill knows how this works, whether they're aware of it or not. Maybe you can think of now any skill you've tried to get better at. It just took time, a volume of reps consciously and consistently through that time. It becomes habitual. The brain loves to create habits. So this level actually works in our favor. This is what leads us to level 4. This is mastering the program. This is where the habits really stick. The myelination really takes over of those neurons firing and wiring so much that it starts to solidify like this cord. The inner wires are like our nerve cells. The outer core, the rubber coating, is like the myelin sheath that just solidifies those thought patterns and those connections of the nervous system, the mind and body, to where you're just unconsciously doing the thing at a high level. The thing about mastery, it's not an end destination. It's not a one and done. It's a constant process of pursuing excellence, pursuing a level of growth and improvement. That's how I look at mastery. It's not a destination. It's an evolving journey to be aware of. Now, to bring this piece to life, here's 5 writing prompts that you can think about to help you establish reality in terms of where you are and what's missing from where you want to go. Essentially, what's that bridge that you need to build to get to fill the gap of where you are, where you want to go. I'm just going to quickly run through these, but I encourage you to pause the video and just take notes on these. So number 1, if nothing changed in the next 12 months, where would I be and how would I feel? Meaning, if you just showed up the same way you did yesterday, would the next 12 months be any different? Number 2, what is one area of my personal life I deeply want to improve but keep putting off? This is about identifying a desire to change, and then you can maybe see how you keep putting it off and ask yourself, well, what's really holding me back? Which is number 3. What do I believe is holding me back? Is it time? Is it fear? Is it habits? Is it skills? Is it a lack of clarity? Is it a lack of belief, support, resources of any kind, just education, awareness? What's holding you back from getting to where you want to be? Number 4, how is this barrier affecting my performance at work? So this is really important because we think personal and professional life are separate, but they're held together by the glue that is us, our brain, our nervous system. Because how things affect us at home, that influences us and impacts us in a way that we bring to work, and the people that are around us, and our clients, our customers, our job, all the things that we're doing. It's about how is both aspects of life affecting you that you're going back and forth, and then your friends, your family. It's how is this barrier affecting you as a human being and how you're performing, aka how you're showing up. Because how we show up, I've covered in other videos, determines the results that we get and the quality of life that we experience. Number 5, what am I willing to do about it? Now that we've identified all the things of where we are, if nothing changes, what happens, and what's the gap holding me back, and how is this affecting my personal professional life? Now we're at the point of, now we have massive amount of awareness. What are we willing to do about it? We say we want X, Y, or Z, but what are we willing to do? So that's the final question. So again, take some time, pause the slide, and journal about these things. And I'd love for you to leave, one thing that you come up with in the comments below, and let's have a conversation about it. And if you're interested in support, just comment coaching, and then we can start a conversation or a dialogue about how I can help you if that's something you're interested in. So step number 2 to being empowered and changing the experiences that you navigate through in life is psychology. Your psychology determines the results that you generate in your life and the quality of the experiences in the most important areas of your life. So this is just a simplified framework for mindset. We've all heard mindset before. We all have different meanings and internal representations of it. And this is something that I learned and I now teach as a simplified framework. So we have a similar conversation starter, a similar definition. We're on the same playing field when we talk about what mindset is or what psychology is. So the first layer of mindset is the stories that we hear from the time we're born and we're pre-verbal to the things that we see, and then the stories we tell ourselves. So our stories, they code the programming of the thoughts running through our mind, the things on loop that we're mostly unaware of. The thing about this is 95% of who we are is an unconscious program of a memorized set of behavior patterns, thoughts, beliefs, emotional reactions, so on and so forth. 90% of our thoughts are the same as the day before. And more than 50% of those thoughts are negative because we're wired for negative bias because that's what preserves our life. It's being aware of threats in the environment and then how we're going to move away from those or fight back to save our lives. The thing about this is it's not very productive in terms of the modern world we live in because most of our fears and threats are in our head. So that's where we have to be really mindful is what are those stories running, those thoughts that you're constantly thinking about, the excuses that you live by, because these stories, they code the programming that becomes the belief systems that we live by. And our beliefs are what filter all incoming information or all outgoing information of what we speak and how we interact with the world, how we view ourselves and what's possible in this life, how we view the outside world. And whatever we believe, we will find, we will see, we will find evidence to prove that we are right, because that's what our ego wants to do. It wants to keep us safe. Being wrong or confrontation or someone opposing a belief, it's an unconscious experience of rejecting our ideas. And then we take that as personal and that we're wrong. And there's a stress response because it's just a matter of how the brain works. And so when we become aware of our belief systems, we become aware of how we're filtering information and more importantly, what we believe about ourselves. Most of these beliefs, though, and these stories are passed down from us, from our parents, our caregivers, our teachers, our friends and family in our environment, cartoons, movies, TV shows, music, the media, culture, society. It's all these things that condition us with these stories that are on repeat that become belief systems. And then we get to a point where we're like, what? I don't. I don't understand. Like these beliefs aren't really something I actually believe in, but they're coded in me. Where did it come from? And we start challenging our belief systems. This is really important because our belief systems form the next layer of our mindset or who we are, and that's our value system. And our values are simply our motive or our reasoning for doing something in our life. And so, if we're not aware of the stories running through our mind that create the belief systems and where those belief systems come from, if they're inherited, they're conditioned, or they're made up from a frame, a perspective that we chose unconsciously in a moment, we will then not be able to understand what drives us. And a lot of what drives us comes down to a sense of safety and security and value gain. So if you think about what you're driven to do, ask yourself, well, why am I doing that? What do I expect to get? What's the ROI of me, having a motive to build a business, a motive to ask this person out, a motive to pass the test, to go to the gym, to eat healthier, to succeed in my career, even if I don't like my career? That's where motivation comes from. It comes from aligning our values to our behaviors. And if we're not aware of our values and our behaviors and if they're congruent or not, that's where burnout happens because we're doing something that we may not believe in or understand. And we get burnt out because it's not serving us. Or this is also what happens when we're not aware of the thing we want to do, but we don't do it. We say we want to do it, but that gap is there and it's our default setting. And so then we're like, all right, it's easy to just not do it. Think about New Year's resolutions. Most commonly chosen New Year's resolution is a health goal. People want to improve their health, but then the resistance of doing all the things to improve their health opposes their belief system and they value something unconsciously, and so their motive to do the thing drops, and they say, I don't have enough motivation, and they seek out gaining motivation, which is like a multi-billion-dollar industry of helping people personally develop and become better and become healthier. But if you're not aware of your value system, it's easy to make the excuse of, well, I just don't have enough motivation, or I'm not as motivated as those people. Because all of this forms the final layer of our psychology or our mindset. That's our identity. It's our I am statements, and it creates the reality and the results that we experience in life. So if you're not aware of who you believe you are at your core, you're going to be always asking, why am I frustrated and going around in circles creating these same experiences that I don't want? Well, it comes down to, what are you driven by? What are your motives for doing something? Like, why do you do the thing that you do? So when we get to this identity piece, the questions here are, who are you when no one's around? Who are you when you're not thinking the thoughts that you always think? Who are you when you're not doing the things that you're always doing to affirm who you are? Because as you can see with the arrows, this becomes a cyclical loop of thinking and believing and forming values and doing things and then creating an I am statement that just continues to, solidify further and deeper into your core of who you are. Now, when we get to a point of creating awareness to the things that we're not happy with, it all starts with self. We can't improve something in the external world without making a change ourselves. And so many of us, we want to change our reality, we want to change the world, but we're unwilling to commit to changing ourselves. And that's by design of the ego, the human brain, to protect us from the unknown, because it's not familiar. It can't predict what's going to happen, even if we have all this evidence from other people that have succeeded telling us this is the way to go and this will happen. It doesn't register with our brain's memory of the past, and it can't predict it because it hasn't had the experience yet. So this is a whole other conversation about breaking this down and taking little steps, but I'll just leave you with a quick framework that is called TEAR, TEAR. So when you get into a resistance point, a sticking point, a bottleneck, and you're like, oh man, I want to do this thing, but like I just don't feel motivated. I'm having all this resistance, this stress, this challenge. First, trace the thoughts, the dialogue you're having, the stories that you're telling yourself, because then you'll see how that's creating an emotional experience, this lack of motivation or this fear, this overwhelm, anxiety, whatever it is. Then you'll easily be able to see your actions. Most of the time it's either inaction or it's a action that opposes the thing that we say we want. And then the final step of terror is results or reality. It's our thoughts trigger our emotions influence our actions, and our actions are what create the results that we experience and that we call our reality. The thing is, reality is only subjective. So we have a subjective reality that becomes our personal reality, and it's all based on our personality, which is how the psychology, the four layers of mindset form our personality. And if we're not happy with the results we're getting, we have to look at ourselves, which leads us to the final step, the third step, which is ownership. And I mentioned this living at cause, living at effect piece earlier. And what this means is you can see the C is greater than E. This is the equation to empowerment. What it means is living at cause is greater than living at effect to my circumstances, to my environment. So it gets you into the mindset of like, what would it take to be more than my environment? What would it take to think outside of my circumstances, outside of my environment? This is really tricky if you're younger, but you can still work on this in your mind and then take steps that will get you closer to where you want to go. It's about owning where you are. We can't have accountability and empowerment without at least having a first fundamental stage or foundation of ownership. Not to say that you chose your family, you chose the situation to be born to, you chose a health outcome that was not desirable, you chose to have adversity. It's about taking ownership of where you are and asking yourself, what's the benefit of this? What skills, knowledge, and experience can I gain from this that I didn't have yesterday that'll help me moving forward? It's about being at cause for your reality and your results rather than living at effect or being a victim to your environment and circumstances, which is easier said than done because it feels so heavy. It feels so challenging. It maybe feels unfair at times. I've been there many times. I get that. And I also know that that's not going to help me change my situation. And it's actually going to be the very thought process that perpetuates the problem of the environment that I want to get out of. So we have to get to a point where we can have faith in taking ownership and living at cause for the results that we generate and how we choose to navigate moving forward rather than living at effect to our circumstances. And so there you have it. There is the three steps to becoming empowered, to creating change in your life, to getting different results in your life. And it starts little by little, one step at a time. It's about creating that awareness and then being able to change your psychology and then taking ownership of where you are and where you want to go and what you're willing to do to close that gap, to bridge that gap, because people don't become successful in accident. People that look at other people and say it must be nice, or they blame other people or outside circumstances for why they're stuck where they are, it's because it makes us feel better about where we are and that we don't have to take accountability or change our ways. We don't have to work through the resistance. And at the same time, that rightness may feel good because you don't have to endure the discomfort. And it also is the very way of creating more suffering in life. And I'd rather take a conscious suffering route to change my experiences and not get to a point where I look back and I regret not taking ownership and taking action, because I've been there. I've been close to death many times, and it's not a fun place to be. And it's not fun seeing other people I care about worry about me and see the struggle they go through because of their at effect to my circumstances, or I should say to my health and success and how I show up. So this video is really to encourage you to take in consideration of what your life could be like for all the reasons that matter most to you if you decided to show up in an empowered state And it all starts with taking ownership of your ability to change who you are at your core. And then by doing so, you'll start to see the results in your life shift, and therefore your reality shift as a consequence that is a positive consequence. So there you have it, 3 steps to change, 3 steps to become empowered to change your results. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'd love to get any feedback. And if you want short 3-minute tactical emails for my newsletter into your inbox, comment newsletter below. I write 3 or less minute weekly tactical newsletters about how to apply these things in a practical manner that is simple to follow, so way you can create consistency and create a new shift in identity to get the results you want. So if any of these concepts had an impact on you, I'd love for you to let me know below. If anyone you think would benefit from this video, please share it with them, and I'll see you in the next video.